All right, welcome everybody. I am just getting us started a little early here, just so we are ready to rock right at noon. But welcome to Discuss, Connect, Reflect. Today we are focusing on employer tools for fair chance hiring. Just want to say thank you all for being here, and we will get started in just a few minutes. Good morning and almost noon. Thank you to those who are just starting to join us. Just letting you know that we are going to get started in just a couple minutes here, but just want to thank you for joining us for today's Discuss, Connect, Reflect webinar, Employer Tools for Fair Chance Hiring. So we are going to get started right at 12 o'clock, but just hang in there. And if you are able, we would love for you to turn your cameras on so we can see your smiling faces. Otherwise, we will get started here in just a couple minutes. All right, we have crossed the 12 o'clock hour, so we are going to get started here for today's webinar. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Discuss, Connect, Reflect webinar. My name is Heidi Schultz, and I'm the Workforce Engagement Coordinator here at the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber. We're really excited to have you with us as we dive into today's important topic, employer tools for fair chance hiring. As we go over today's agenda, just take a look, but I just want to make sure I cover a few quick housekeeping items. For everyone attending today, just so you know, today's session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available after the conclusion of the webinar and sent out to everyone. In addition, we'll be sharing helpful links and resources in the chat throughout the session. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat during the presentation. We do ask that you keep your mics muted, but please feel free to turn on your cameras. For those who are joining us today, we'd love to see your smiling faces. And also just a note that there will be time reserved at the end for questions, so you'll be able to unmute your mics at that time as well. We are proud to be able to offer this webinar at no cost, thanks to the support from the State of Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. Through grant funding, the Chamber serves as a subcontractor in the Drive for Five program, and that partnership allows us to bring meaningful, impactful content like this to our business and community partners. The purpose of these webinars is to provide training focused on how to best serve, engage, and retain underserved and underemployed populations in the workforce. Now let's talk about why today's discussion is so important. This slide shows a snapshot of today's current workforce in North Dakota and Minnesota compared to the United States. And in today's competitive labor market, finding and retaining reliable talent is incredibly challenging. Many capable, motivated individuals remain on the sidelines because they've been involved in the justice system. Fair chance hiring is an opportunity to change that for your organization and for our community. By offering fair hiring practices, you're not just giving someone a chance, you're helping meet workforce demands with talent that's ready to work and contribute. Our goals today are to gain a better understanding of fair chance hiring, share about support services and programs available locally and statewide, learn practical steps your business can take to start or strengthen inclusive hiring, and to better understand the barriers individuals face after justice system involvement and how employment can change that. I also want to recognize that the individuals presenting today are just a few of the many resources available in our community. While they bring deep knowledge and experience, there are numerous other local organizations doing important work as well, many of which will be highlighted during the session today. Now I have the pleasure of introducing today's presenters. Today we're going to be hearing from Chad Tosterud and Tricia Thomas from North Dakota Job Service, followed by Kristen Kimely with North Dakota Correction and Rehabilitation, and ending with Christy Bartel and Jessica Hibble from D&M Industries. Again, please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat throughout today's presentation for our presenters. Now, without further ado, to start us off, I'm going to be turning it over to Chad and Tricia with North Dakota Job Service.
Thank you, Heidi. I hope everybody can hear me. Welcome to this webinar. I am excited to be here. My name is Chad Tostrud. I am a coordinator and advisor for our JP3 program and our PRIDE programs. I am also a certified offender employment specialist, and I think that that draws particular attention to why we are here today, as I will be able to share with you nearly my 25 years of working with justice-involved individuals and helping them become employed and helping employers fill their need, as well as finding gainful opportunities for employment with those employers. I would like to start out with just to piggyback off a couple of the slides, or one of the slides that Heidi had mentioned earlier. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, by the end of this decade, we are going to have nearly a $6 million shortfall in availability of workers in this country. So I think that it's important that we tap into other resources that would be available to us, other populations that have in the past sometimes been excluded from opportunities with employment. From 1973 to 1997, this country hovered around a 5% unemployment rate. I was always told when I first started working for Job Service that 5% was an acceptable unemployment rate. Today, as you looked at that previous information that Heidi had presented, we have between North Dakota and Minnesota a 2 to 3% unemployment rate, which is unheard of. And so therefore, we need to become more creative in the means by which we are searching for employees to fill that void. Heidi, if you can go to my first slide, please. So what is fair chance hiring? First of all, it's the consideration of employers to review candidates based on skills and qualifications for the job, rather than solely based on their criminal history. Some of the factors in this involve focusing more on the qualifications, including skills, knowledge, and abilities, delaying background checks. Now, what I'm saying is that we don't do it's not to never do a background check, but delay that background check to a point of either the stage of the interview or to the event of the actual job offer. And consider the entire person, the whole person, and the qualifications that they are bringing to that or to you as an employer. And especially look at the candidate's potential for growth. And what I mean specifically by that is talk to them about the steps that they have taken to overcome their barrier of their criminal record. In addition to that, I have found that there is also personal bias. And so individuals need to address their own personal biases when they are looking at and considering a candidate who may have a background issue. And then, of course, there are legal and there are policy considerations that we need to also review. For example, there is the Fair Chance to Compete for Jobs Act of 2019. That particular act was inhibited or prohibits the federal contractors or their associated agencies from requesting criminal history information before an offer is actually extended to employment. And then there is the ban the box laws. So many states have enacted ban the box. In fact, across the nation, there are 17 states who have a total ban on the box procedure in place, which simply means that it applies to all public and private sector employees, where the question of have you been convicted of a felony is delayed until the actual offer of employment is made. Totally, though, there are approximately 37 states across the country who have some variation of ban the box. So it may be based on the federal requirements, it may be based on state requirements. It may also take into consideration size of employer, type of industry, etc. Next slide, Heidi. So 70 million Americans have some type of an arrest or a conviction record. So I always tell people when I present that these include your family members, they include your friends, they include your neighbors, they include employees, and they include customers. Nearly 600,000 individuals return each year to their communities after a period of incarceration. And at least 25% of the workforce will have at least one conviction. To put the 70 million Americans into a little bit more perspective, that comes down to 1 in 3 Americans have a conviction record. When I first saw that, I always found that it was absolutely amazing to look at those numbers. But that's why I included the fact that it's more likely you are going to come into contact with somebody who does have a conviction, but you may not even know that. Fair chance hiring is not only altruistic, but it's a good business sense because it does tap into the massive talent pool that is underserved. In my opinion, it's a win-win for employers and it's a win-win for society. Next slide, please. According to some of the research, 85% of the human resource people and 81% of business individuals say that people with criminal records perform at the same or better than employees without criminal records. Justice-involved individuals also have a lower turnover rate, and individuals who remain unemployed are more likely to reoffend and or remain homeless and will increase our recidivism, which means that they just end up back in the system again, and it's just a cyclical pattern. Finally, justice-involved individuals are more engaged, they're loyal, and they're profitable. They go beyond to prove themselves because the stigma that is attached to them makes them motivated to do so. And finally, and this is what I hear a lot from individuals within the community, is that employment does make the community safer. So let's talk a little bit about EEOC guidelines. When I first heard of this back in approximately 2012, I was amazed because it was actually just a guideline. It was not written into law. So all of these steps are just they serve the purpose of providing guidelines for employers to follow. And I would hope that employers would listen to these guidelines. So first of all, for a smooth and discrimination-free hiring process, address hiring individuals' criminal record in your company policies. Secondly, this is the time to talk with your CEO or higher ups or people who make hiring decisions about making positive changes to company policies when hiring individuals with company or with criminal records. And then it allows us to tap into a new talent pool of qualified individuals. Separate the recruiting process from the criminal background process. Sometimes this actually includes outsourcing the criminal background process. I do want to take just a slight moment here to deviate. I want to point out that oftentimes the companies that do the background checks, their information can be incorrect. It is obviously best to always check multiple records. But in some of the studies that I personally conducted, I have found that over half the time the information is either incorrect or outdated. And so I always encourage employers to verify the information that they are looking up. And there definitely is a difference between an arrest, a charge, and a conviction. And sometimes those records don't always reflect the accurate information. Engage a professional employment agency or HR recruiting agency to help you with outsourcing those tasks rather than trying to conduct them internally. Next slide. So as part of the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, there are 5 considerations to determine whether or not to hire someone with a criminal history. First of all, the nature of the crime. Secondly, relevance of the crime to the company's position. Third, the amount of time since that conviction. Next, the age of the candidate when the offense was initially committed. And lastly, candidates explain what happened along with what steps the individual has taken to better themselves. I think this is one of the most crucial and critical steps. As I alluded to earlier, I've been working with justice-involved individuals for nearly 25 years. And prior to that, my history includes the fact that I was a deputy sheriff and I used to incarcerate those same individuals. What I have found over the years is that oftentimes individuals forget to tell their stories, or employers don't allow individuals the opportunity to tell their story. There are many steps that a person will take while incarcerated to change their circumstances and change those aberrant behaviors. And it's important for us to remember that they are taking critical steps to change those behaviors so that they will become productive individuals once they're released to society again. Next slide. So I also want to talk about some of the hiring incentives that are available to employers. And the work opportunity tax credit is a financial incentive to the employer. Depending upon which target group the individual fall into, there is a federal tax credit available to employers to take advantage of individuals who meet one of 10 target groups. And just to give you an example, of those target groups, they do include obviously individuals with convictions, but there's also individuals who might be receiving some type of benefits such as SSI or SSDI or SNAP benefits. There's also 3 classifications or categories for military veterans. That tax incentive to you as an employer could be anywhere from a minimum of $2,400 to a maximum of $9,600 if an individual should also be a veteran and be a qualified veteran who has been unemployed and disabled for more than 6 months. And so I encourage employers to incorporate in part of their hiring processes the work opportunity tax credit, if nothing more than just as an option to incentivize you as an employer to take advantage of hiring that individual. And again, I know you're going to hire the person based on their qualifications and their abilities to do the job, but I also encourage you to look at these hiring incentives. The other program is the federal bonding program, which is a fidelity bond available to employers to insure employees. Sometimes due to the nature of the job, the position must be bondable. But in other instances, a person can be bonded because an employer may just have a hesitancy to hire somebody because of their background issues. And so what the federal bonding program does is that it insures an individual up to $5,000 for the first 6 months of their employment against any fiduciary or financial loss that an employer may experience. And again, I want to point out that these may be simply just thoughts that an employer may have, but these programs can help alleviate any negative connotation that may be perceived by an employer. There is contact information. Now, I should mention, these are federal programs. So the contact information that you see there is for North Dakota and Minnesota specifically, but they are federal programs. And so those programs are available in all 50 states. It's just the The way that you may apply or who you may contact may be slightly different. Next slide. I also want to point out, and sometimes this is a missed opportunity for employers, but I want to mention the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or what we call WOTC. WOTC consists of classroom training, on-the-job training, work experience, registered apprenticeships. These are all opportunities that the individual themselves can partake in, but it also benefits the employer. And I encourage you to reach out to either your local workforce center or job service offices to find out more about those particular programs. But a couple of the programs that I have had great success with is for some of our clients to enhance or gain new skills by participating in classroom training. We've also had some individuals who have had an OJT. Again, I'm not the expert on the OJTs, but basically in some cases, if the employer qualifies and the individual qualifies, wages could be augmented up to 50% for that individual while they are receiving training on the job. And of course, there's a lot of information out there on registered apprenticeships, and I do encourage employers in specified industries where that's applicable to take advantage of those apprenticeships as well. And again, just to remind you, I did include some contact information there if you want more details about those specific programs. Next slide, please. So here at Job Service, we partnered with the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And 2 years ago, in that collaborative effort between our agencies, we began a program called JP3. It's a Justice Involved program. And what I'd like to do is share some of the stats of that particular program. So since the 4th of July of 2023, we have enrolled 357 participants. These are individuals who go through a referral process. They have to have completed certain specified classes while they were already enrolled, or excuse me, while they were already incarcerated. Upon successful completion of that, and upon a successful referral from their case manager at the prison, those individuals would be referred to our program, and my partner and I, Tricia Thomas, we would meet with these individuals along with Mohammed. We would meet with these individuals weekly upon release until they become employed, and then we do a 6-month follow-up to make sure that that employment and the retention is there for those individuals. Currently, we have approximately 114 active participants, and what that simply means is that we are following those individuals. They're either in what we call work track, which is where we're following them upon employment, or they're currently engaged in finding employment. And I find this statistic really important because it shows the success of this program. And I just want to give a brief, quick history, and that has to do with the fact that of reentry or reintegration of individuals back into the community is not a new process. But the whole premise behind reintegration or reentry is the fact that individuals receive wraparound services upon reentry into the community. And I think that these particular numbers verify that point because of the wraparound services, because of the general services that these individuals and the support that they receive upon release from the community. 92 out of 114 individuals have been successfully employed in this current number of the 114. So that gives us an 81% success rate. And that in itself speaks to how well these programs can work for individuals. Heidi, thank you. That is all that I have.
Sounds good, Chad. Say one question just to follow up with the JP3 program. You said it started in 2023 in July. How long did you say how long it goes for? Is it ongoing or
right now
kind
it
of
is ongoing.
okay?
We do have funding. We had funding for the biennium, and now that program funding has been renewed, and so we are going to continue with that program for another 2 years.
Okay, sounds good. Good to know. Well, thank you so much. I posted a couple links in the chat as Chad was presenting today, but any additional resources, like I mentioned earlier, we'll make sure that we include on our follow-up after today's webinar is done.
Where?
Okay, so Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kristen Kimley with the North Dakota Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Hi, everyone. Heidi, thank you for having me today. I always love an opportunity to talk about drug court and the DOCR and kind of how we can work with the community and helping the individuals that I work with directly. So you can go ahead to the first slide. Just a little overview of what drug court is. So we are considered here in Cass County the East Central Judicial District Drug Court. Our mission is to enhance community safety through an immediately responsive alternative sentencing program for those suffering with substance use disorders. So to put that more plainly, we work with high risk, high needs individuals who are facing a sentence of an A misdemeanor or greater that want to apply to be in our program. Yes, it is to essentially avoid a prison sentence, but it is a way harder program than allowing themselves to go to prison. It is a community program. It is a very intensive supervision program. It is the most intensive supervision program that we do have in North Dakota. Just with the amount of treatment, the amount of meetings, the amount of reporting to the judge, the probation office, community resources that they have to do while they are in the program. So essentially, we seek to reduce recidivism by holding offenders responsible for their behavior, stopping alcohol abuse, substance abuse, stuff like that. Obviously, one of our goals in drug court is to reduce recidivism. We are trying to help our clients remain abstinent from alcohol and other prohibited substances. We are changing our name from drug court to treatment court. Here, I believe the law actually already went through, so I should be referring to it as treatment court. I've just got habit by saying drug court, but treatment courts. We have a contract through providers in our community to where our clients are referred for chemical dependency treatment. And then they can also be referred out for mental health, social services, those types of things as well. We provide increased opportunities for involvement in comprehensive treatment, maintenance programs, access to coordinated local and state services. We've got great connections with other agencies as far as state's attorney's office, defense attorney's offices, obviously judges, other court systems, that type of thing as well to kind of all come together to improve the overall success rates of our clients. Again, improve the overall social functioning of participants in areas such as employment, housing, family relationships, and community activities. And then, of course, reduce costs to the criminal justice system by decreasing incarceration and criminogenic risk. So, drug court, as far as our outline, it is a court-supervised treatment program targeting participants whose major problems stem from substance use disorders. One of the things that I talked about is one of the things I guess we had discussed prior to coming on to this webinar is sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Addiction doesn't discriminate. As far as the different charges that our clients have in drug court, there's quite a few different things. It's not always just possession of a controlled substance or possession of drug paraphernalia. Sometimes you have clients whose charges are theft, criminal trespassing, all of those types of things, but they all stem from substance use, and that is why they are committing these crimes. So drug court's a voluntary program. They have regular court appearances before a district court judge. They attend treatment. They submit to random drug testing. They have at least 2 a week here at probation, and then another one with treatment. They maintain regular attendance at community support group meetings. That could be AA, NA, Smart Recovery, community activities that are going on. I have ribbon dress making at the Native American Center, religious stuff. I mean, any of that stuff, as long as it's getting them involved in the community. They also receive assistance in obtaining education, housing, vocational training, and job placement services. The program length is no less than 12 months, so they are in the program for a minimum of 1 year. And the incentives to doing drug court is that they, upon successful completion or graduation, is what we call it, from the drug court program, it could result in modification of probation conditions or early termination of probation. Best case scenario, sometimes dismissal of criminal charges if their criminal charge is an A misdemeanor. And it qualifies underneath Century Code. So those are all incentives for being in the program. As far as for justice involved and employment and stuff like that, why drug court? And I ask a room full of law enforcement officers that drive around on the streets all day, how many of you have arrested the same person several times? What is the most common denominator of repeated arrests for crimes such as, like I said, theft, trespassing, terrorizing, criminal mischief, domestics? I mean, all those things. And the biggest answer, of course, that I got is substance abuse. It's very frustrating to some people when they see the revolving door of people coming through probation or supervision, taxpayer dollars, more victims, police taking up time when there's, quote unquote, bigger fish to fry, that type of thing. So what I always like to talk about is that incarcerated individuals will be our neighbor one day. We want to help them be good ones. A lot of our clients that are sentenced to incarceration, they're only there for approximately 3 to 18-month sentences. They are probably going to be released sooner rather than later. And we want to make sure that we give them the best opportunities for change that we can. And that is exactly what drug court does. So it provides the opportunities for behavior change versus essentially incarcerating and what we call kicking the can down the road, that revolving door. So we want clients to come out of incarceration and be able to learn skills, have resources available to them, that type of thing. That is why we try to build relationships with employers, resources, members of the community in order to have our clients build relationships with those people as well. So next slide. Some of our resources that we go through is Voc Rehab. Sometimes they help with clothing and boots and those types of things for clients that have employment with us. Job Service of North Dakota, of course. We have a lot of clients that do Linus Welding training. They have a lot of scholarships, training, school connections to employment. I just actually had a client graduate from Linus Welding, and they already have a job lined up for him starting in August, which is great. So those are all the different things that Linus does. I'm going to skip D&M because I'm going to stop or end with them, but Good Job Scholarships, which is a federal Pell Grant through Linus Welding, Free Through Recovery and Community Connect have been a huge advocate for our clients in regards to helping with employment, even transportation issues to get to and from interviews, all of those different things. Some other new things that I'm learning more about, where I've had clients that have been in the health services. So like brand new to the Board of Nursing is called, I'm trying to think what it's called here. Oh, an alternative to discipline program that recently came through, that are also resources for clients that are on supervision or justice involved. So again, the alternative to discipline is put in place to break down barriers to issues that may arise while someone is employed. That's also justice involved. It is, like I said, brand new to the Board of Nursing, non-punitive guidance and monitoring for high-risk individuals who have a history of good practice. So instead of just eliminating nursing licenses, they actually have now an alternative to that. As far as connecting with employers in the community, I had a friend that worked at D&M Industries. I'm constantly trying to figure out who hires felons because, again, this is why we're here. This is why this webinar is in place today, is to discuss how we can better employ the justice involved and keep them in the community longer and as good neighbors. I had a friend that worked at D&M. I had asked him if they hire people that are on supervision, and I got the answer yes. I got connected with Christy, who was very supportive of our mission in drug court. They're a very open-minded company. They allowed me to speak to their management team. I came in and gave a presentation on who we are. I thankfully had a group of great individuals that ended up getting hired at D&M that did great work for them. So that really built that rapport with D&M. So as far as just getting involved and asking around, I mean, that's how I've gained a lot of relationships with drug court and employers in the community, is just simply asking the question, how would you feel about, hiring people that are in a drug court program, this intensive supervision program where they have a little bit more of accountability outside of just being employed, to where we can sign releases of information. We can collaborate with that employer or that HR to make sure that that client is successful. That communication helps too. If something is seen at work, they can let us know, and vice versa, that hey, we think maybe something's going on with this individual, and be proactive rather than reactive with those clients in order to avoid an employment termination or sanction or anything like that. So those are just different situations that we've had in regards to D&M. I think I have 3 current three graduates that still work there, 1 current client that works there. We've just had a great time working with D&M Industries in the community. They're just one of the ones that have been around the longest, I think, for me. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as just trying to get justice involved employment opportunities. We're always looking for more and better relationships with people in the community for that. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Kristen, for sharing all that information. Like I said earlier, we'll make sure that we share out everyone's contact info. But if you do have questions for either Chad or Kristen so far, please make sure you pop those in the chat. Otherwise, we'll be able to talk at the end. So, last but not least, I would love to introduce you to Christy Bartel and Jessica Hibble with D&M Industries. So, Christy, you can take it away.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Christy Bartel, as Heidi said, and I'm a part of our human resources team here at D&M Industries, where I primarily focus on recruitment and employee relations. So for those who may not be familiar, D&M Industries is located here in Moorhead, Minnesota, and we are a nationwide supplier of building materials for both commercial and residential construction projects. So we specialize in providing doors, frames, millwork, windows, and hardware. We were founded in 1982, and one of the things we are most proud of is being 100% employee owned since 2006. So you can go ahead to the first slide. So I'd like to start also by saying thank you for the opportunity to share our company's journey in embracing what's commonly referred to as fair chance hiring. I guess I would start by saying I don't even like that term. It does create this sense of otherness, and it can unintentionally reinforce stigma. So I just prefer to call it hiring because that's exactly what it is. This topic I've become deeply passionate about. I mean, it's solving recruitment challenges by engaging with people, and especially when it means giving voice to those who are often overlooked. I do believe deeply in fairness, and I find a lot of fulfillment in creating spaces where everybody does feel seen, heard, and valued. So when I joined the company, one of my first major challenges I was faced with was developing a strategy to attract and retain talent. So, I mean, I'll be honest, at the time we were really struggling. New hires would ghost us. Sometimes they'd leave in the middle of their shift, or they would just stop showing up altogether without any notice. We were also in the middle of a tight labor market because it was COVID. So there was very few traditional recruitment options or candidates available to us. Around that same time, I also had the chance to attend a community educational event that involved probation officers. There was mental health professionals and representatives from different reentry programs. And their conversation was really focused on advocating for practice or injustice impacted individuals, and talking about the barriers those individuals face when trying to rebuild their lives after justice involvement or recovery. So they were really focused on housing, transportation, healthcare, and employment. And so that event really opened my eyes to an often overlooked but incredibly motivated, talented pool, and that, it was something that we could help with within the employment area. So if you want to change slides. After the event, I did bring back what I had learned to our leadership team and directly to my HR manager. And to their credit, they immediately embraced the idea of actively recruiting this untapped group of individuals. We really made a conscious decision to remove any unnecessary barriers and commit to seeing people for who they are today and not just what's on their record. We also really started to develop partnerships with organizations like Drug Court or with probation officers partners. F5 Project was another one that we really worked closely with in the beginning. And these partners became really important in supporting our hiring processes. Because if you're hiring justice impacted individuals, it does require more than just saying yes. It does take some thoughtful action. So it's reviewing policies that may unintentionally exclude good candidates, providing bias training to hiring manager, and really creating and cultivating a culture that prioritizes growth and understanding. Kristen mentioned it a little bit earlier, but as an example, one of the things we did is we invited Kristen in, and she presented directly to our management team. It really helped them to understand how people fall into addiction, how addiction leads to criminal activity, and then what the path to recovery and reentry looks like, and how rare it really is for employers to take that chance. And so the conversation flipped a lot of mindsets from, oh my, what did they do, to, oh, I understand, what have they done since, and how can we support them? So I know, and I want to be honest. I know there is a perceived risk, and it's one of the biggest reasons many companies don't consider this hiring approach. And I get it. It's a big unknown, and then we felt that in the beginning too. But we kept ourselves open-minded to it and the possibility. And so there are ways to be smart and strategic while still opening doors. One of the biggest things we did to reduce risk is we started working really closely in developing those partnerships. So with Drug Court, with F5 Project, with the Minnesota and North Dakota Department of Correction, they really help us identify who are the best fit for our work environment. And we do not pull from pools with history of violence. We really rely on our partners to help us screen for individuals who are ready for that employment, who are stable in their recovery, and who are accountable. In fact, since we started this 5 years ago, many of our current supervisors and employees who came through to us through these partnerships now help support new hires. So not only do they understand their journey, they know what to watch for and how to help people stay on track. That peer level understanding creates a stronger, more supportive culture than we could have actually built on our own. And our partners themselves, they provide a lot of structure and accountability. We have a drug testing policy in place, but they're also doing ongoing drug testing. They have continuous check-ins, like Kristen mentioned, and they offer support services like peer support, mental health care. Those are the measures we couldn't implement on our own as an employer. So that shared responsibility between us and our partners make the transition safer and much more successful to everybody that is involved. So the impact. So since we began this journey about 5 years ago, it has been a really interesting journey and quite incredible. The individuals we've hired bring a level of resilience. They are very empathetic, and they do have a very strong work ethic that is hard to match. They value the opportunity, and it shows, and they don't take that opportunity for granted, which is an attitude that can really be contagious. But more importantly, we're not just filling jobs. We're stabilizing families, we're reducing recidivism, we're building long-term careers. A lot of these individuals, when have been with us for a number of years, they've grown in their careers, and they've been promoted to different positions. And we're strengthening our company culture in a meaningful way. We've seen stronger engagement, lower turnover, and a genuine sense of pride amongst our employees. It's them knowing we're a company that doesn't just talk the talk. They see the impact that we're making in our community by actually living it. So advice I would have from current employers, there's a lot that I could have included in this, but I think first and foremost, when I think back to our journey, it was building those partnerships and really understanding how can they support our hiring processes, and what services can they provide that, as an HR department, we just simply cannot provide, or as a business. Educate your leadership team. A lot of people they don't know what they don't know. Help them understand the why behind this approach. It would be, in my opinion, key to long-term success. And help them understand the bias around things. I know me personally, when Kristen came to us and I heard drug court, I'll be honest, I had a bias. The first thing I thought was, oh, drug court? That sounds bad. Like, what is this? And when I learned more about the program, I mean, it completely changed my mindset. So it's really exciting to hear that they're even changing it from drug court to treatment court. Examine your own hiring processes. Look for those invisible barriers, things like blanket background checks that may be screening out otherwise qualified candidates. And that's not to say that background checks should be eliminated across all industries. I get it. They have a place, especially if you're working with vulnerable adults or maybe in healthcare. But for us, it's not necessary in the work that we do. Be intentional about your workplace culture. Make sure it's built to support people who are rebuilding and growing and ready to contribute. That's how second chances really turn into those success stories. And I think most importantly, it's staying open minded. Don't let the fear or assumption stop you from exploring what's possible. This might be a leap at first or feel that way, but with the right support systems in place, it's one of the most rewarding decisions you'll make. This isn't about lowering the bar or handing out favors. We certainly haven't at all in our recruitment practices. It's about seeing people for who they are now and not just what they've done, and really meeting them where they're at in their life. When we do that, we don't just build a stronger workforce, we change lives, we create real opportunities, and we really are giving back to our community in a meaningful way. And that is all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. I'm going to go on to the next one. So one thing that I'm really excited to be able to share with everyone on the webinar today too, in addition to Christy sharing from D&M Industries and her role, one of their employees, Jessica Hibble, is willing to provide a testimonial on her experience and pathway and how she's been able to find success and quality work at D&M Industries, if you will. So Jessica, I will pass it along to you. Please share. And like I mentioned earlier a couple times, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop those into the chat. And then we'll be able to unmute and talk at the end here because we'll have a couple minutes left. So.
Right. Thank you, Heidi. You can throw up that slide there of our photos because I'll reference them a little bit. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Hibble, and I am a 2023 graduate of East Central Judicial Drug Court. And I'm happy and always excited to say I've been sober for 3 years, 3 months, and 9 days today. I am a single mother to an amazing 16-year-old girl. I work at D&M Industries full-time, and then I also work at Sweet Shots part-time, if you're familiar. So just to get started, I had used drugs on and off during high school and college. I graduated, got into law school, got married, and had a baby along the way. 15 years ago, I had passed the bar and was hired at a law firm in a small town in northern North Dakota. Not long after I got divorced, I relapsed into drug use, and I slowly descended into full-blown addiction about 10 years ago. As was stated previously, drugs do not discriminate. I was a full-time lawyer practicing in courtrooms all across the state, and still fell victim, not even victim, but I still fell to addiction. So not long after, during that time, I became homeless. I lost my law license. I'd been arrested for multiple felony drug charges and other misdemeanors. I will say that I tried getting sober multiple times. I had attended treatment at least 4 different times, but I wasn't really connected with the community or any programs other than just trying to do it on my own. Finding gainful employment was extremely difficult because I would not even be considered for a job due to usually my recent charges or just my felony convictions. It did keep me in a constant relapse and full addiction cycle. And also during this time, I had lost custody of my daughter and had very limited family contact when I hit my rock bottom. I was sentenced to drug court on February 14th, 2022. In December 2022, I was recommended to Christy Bartell for a part-time administrative assistant position at D&M Industries. Before then, I worked full-time at Sweet Shots, and I still work there. I love working there. But I did think that the only type of job available to me would be where I would never have much of a retirement or health insurance. And working in the hospitality industry doesn't really allow for you always to be able to rely on income, just depending on how busy you are. So I definitely wanted something that I could pay my bills with and provide for my daughter. 3 months after starting at D&M, the CEO of our company, Dan Otto, had recommended that I apply for a full-time position that was open in our purchasing department, and I applied and I got the job. My co-employee owners, including members of our management team, have shown up for me during my sober journey. They have attended my drug court graduation, and you can see in that first picture there's Christy from HR, the CEO of our company, Dan Otto, also our CEO, Brad Wishnock, and two of our managers, Brian Stanley, and my direct manager, Adam Mullenbach. They also came when I was speaking at the 20-year anniversary for drug court. And other ways that they showed up, I had to find different housing after I had graduated from drug court, and multiple team members stepped up to help me find a new apartment. Managers wrote letters of recommendations for me, and the very first place that I applied accepted me. And I know that without that support, I probably would have struggled finding housing even years after I had completed drug court, only because when you have any sort of conviction on your record, that makes quite a big difference. So them saying, and showing up for me in the ways that they did by providing those letters confirmed with the new leasing company that I would be a good fit, and it's been a great transition for me there. I love where I live. Also, as a single mom, they have allowed me to adjust my work schedule slightly to get my daughter to and from school and for activities while still maintaining my full-time schedule, and that's something that I haven't experienced anywhere else before, so I'm really appreciative of that. I am here today with full primary residential responsibility of my daughter. I have a very nice apartment. I have an amazing job. I have a reliable vehicle, which is also registered, insured, and I have a valid driver's license. Those are all things that, believe me, when you're getting sober, you never think will happen, and eventually they do with hard work. And I also have full support and trust back from my family and my peers. All of this is definitely possible with the employers like D&M who gave me a chance to prove myself. So my biggest thing that I want to speak to employers about, and Christy slightly touched on, is to meet people where they are at. There's going to be different steps that they're going through with their recovery process. If they have been sober for 3 months, they might be in a halfway house or in sober living, or they may even be in programs like drug court. And what I would ask of you is just to do your best to accommodate, as the business allows, of course, any schedules they may have to follow in order to stick to their sober schedule. Many times people are required to do check-ins. They may be restricted on hours they can work. They may have meetings with probation, or they may be required to attend classes or meetings or even court appearances. But if they are actively sober, do your best that you can to make it less stressful for them by working with them on their schedule. And also really having kind of an open door policy, someone that they can come to if they may be experiencing some sort of stressful event that they're having trouble navigating. Having someone that you're able to go talk to without worry or judgment. And there still might be some of that there depending on the circumstances. And of course, you have to take all of this with a little bit of grain of salt. I understand you can't run a business without having people show up to their work and do the work that they need to do. But just the more that you can make it less stressful for them, the more successful that they're going to be. The further they get along in their sober process, they'll have less appointments, less classes, less meetings, and court hearings. I'm 2 years out. Yeah, 2 years out of drug court. I still attend weekly meetings, but I make it on my own time. And so I really don't have anything left over from my time of being, in my first beginning stages of actively getting sober that really hinder any of my work here. And again, I'm not saying to bend any of the rules for them, but just have a realistic expectation that they have worked so hard to get where they're at. And you're giving them some grace by allowing them to grow. I just want to finish off by saying that the biggest hurdles for anyone fresh in sobriety after attending some sort of treatment program and getting clean is really gainful employment and safe housing. I am so fortunate to work for a company that respects me as I am. D&M gave me back the dignity I worked so hard to achieve. Sorry, I'm choking up. And really, without their hiring process in place, I would never be where I'm at today. And I also shout out to Sweet Shots because they're also very giving. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time today and the opportunity to speak to you all.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate you sharing your story. I think, Christy, did I see you raise your hand? Do you have something to add?
No, that was, I just bumped it. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Just wanted to double check. So if there's any questions for Jessica, for Christy, Chad, anyone else, please feel free to drop those in the chat. Sorry, I need to go to the next slide before I talk ahead of myself. I just want to say thank you so much to all of our presenters today. You all took time out of your busy days to be able to share your expertise, your resources, your experiences directly in our region. And also thank you to everyone who attended today. This Discuss, Connect, Reflect webinar is really important, and I'm grateful for all of you for jumping on and listening and hopefully learning. At this time, I want to open up the chat and or turn on your cameras or unmute your mics if anyone has any questions. Please feel free to ask those now. It looks like there's a couple comments for you in here, Jessica. Thank you for sharing your story. Congratulations. You're amazing. Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, odd that I work at the chamber, but I'm asking this question. But often when we're talking with our business and industry partners, and so this is like for any of all of you that spoke today, one of the things that there's a lot of hesitation about getting started and those kind of things. Maybe from the HR perspective, what was maybe the hardest barrier that you had and how you work through that with starting kind of the programs that you have and that kind of thing. I'm just interested to know.
Christy, you want to take that away?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know. For us, I mean, we were just really open from the beginning. Prior to me joining the company, we had already we have a couple facilities out in Wisconsin, and they actually house, or excuse me, not house, employ a number of individuals that are currently incarcerated and actually get transported to to our facilities and then transported back. So they're actually earning. It's kind of like a work release program, if you will. So that kind of all halted with COVID, and then so we kind of already had been doing it as a business, but we hadn't been doing it here in Moorhead, and so I don't know. I wish our HR manager was on the call. Maybe she
Yeah.
would have a better answer, but I think we were just so open. I think maybe it was, if I had to say anything, it was just the fear of the unknown and what are we going to be walking into, what kind of things are going to happen. But I think that kind of dwindled pretty quickly over time because there wasn't really a whole lot of challenges, if you will. I guess I know I don't have a real good answer.
No, I think that is a great answer, that there was anticipated, but there wasn't much issue. So
Yeah. And I mean, anytime you hire anybody, I mean, there are challenges, right? Somebody might not show up. Someone has a great interview and they say all the right things, and then you get them here and it's like, well, that's not what I was expecting. It's no different when you're hiring from this group of individuals.
Kristen, go ahead. I think you raised your hand.
One of the barriers that I see too, I'm not in HR obviously, but just from reporting back from my clients, is there are a few employers out here that are willing to hire people on my caseload, justice involved in individuals. They are willing to hire them. And then they're like, yep, you have the job. We would love to have you. It sounds like you've got everything in order, all this stuff. And then somebody from corporate in New York says, nope, because they have a felony on their record, we cannot hire them, and therefore you have to let them go. Where, trying to reduce, like I said, I think we had talked about, Chad had talked about like the background checks and those types of things and how we can maybe work around certain types of background checks, or if there's some sort of a loophole to maybe talking with those corporate people that are really not involved in the actual hiring process locally, because they are trying to see the person that sits in front of them. They are trying to reduce that stigma and that bias, and in chatting with that person and getting to know that person during an interview. And they'd be a great candidate, a great person, a great employee to have working for their company, but then somebody who has like zero stake in what's actually happening during the interview process is saying no because of what I see on this piece of paper. So that's just one of the barriers I think that I've noticed too with our clients is those bigger companies and where that actual no comes from sometimes. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing that for sure. Any other questions that people may have? While you guys are thinking, what I'm going to do is just move to the next slide and share a link. One thing that we really appreciate is getting feedback from everyone who attends our webinars, just being able to give us perspective on your experience today. So if all of you probably have one of these very handy and available, your phone. If you'd be willing to either grab that and scan the QR code on the screen, or you can click the link in the chat just to fill out our quick survey, that would be amazing. This is something that helps provide information to us in planning any future sessions. And so we just really appreciate your feedback and thoughts on today's presentation. Some key takeaways that I have that I'd want to share is kind of three of them, if you will. So from what we've heard today from all of our speakers, I feel like keeping in mind that fair chance hiring really matters for individuals, for employers, and for our communities. And then also support is available. So Christy kind of talked about you thought there were going to be perceived challenges and struggles and things that you're going to run into, but knowing like kind of pre-building that support system ahead of time, knowing that's available to you, we're going to share out those resources so support is available. And then also I just want to highlight real employers are already doing it like D&M. I know there's a couple others in our community as well that have really embraced fair chance hiring. And so those are kind of my key takeaways. But is there any questions from anyone else? I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so just want to open it up. All right, well, hearing none, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes back in your day. Oh, wait, Christy, did I see you raised your hand? Something to add? Was that okay. I thought I
Somebody
saw it.
else
Just
did,
want to make
and
sure.
then it went
Oh,
down. So
gotcha. Whoever that person is wants to unmute. Go ahead.
Hey, sorry, that was me. This is Mandy
Oh,
from
you're good.
Bushel. I think one thing for folks to think about too, and I've just ran into this in prior lives, being an HR person, where I think folks have some misunderstandings if they're federal contractors and what that means for hiring justice involved individuals. I think that people just see that as, nope, we have a federal contract, we can't, and that's not true. And I think there's, you run into a lot of folks like Jessica who are underemployed, right? So like, how do you get this chance to have people with, great education to come and work for you? It's a giant untapped market. And so I'd encourage folks to explore that, if you have government contracts in place and what you can and cannot do, because chances are you can do more than you can.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mandy, for sure. Any other last minute thoughts? Chad, was there anything that you thought of from the beginning to now that you need and or want to add from just your role at job service and what you do there?
I guess I'll just close with this particular thought, and that is we all make choices, and we make good choices and we make bad choices in our lives. The bad choices don't have to define us, but it's what we do to correct those choices and make the situation better for ourselves and for our families that really need to count. And I just want to say, when I'm working with an individual, and I over the years have seen hundreds of individuals who have walked maybe a less desirable path in their lives, but I'm always excited to hear their stories. I'm always excited to see the paths that they take. And I see these individuals grow, and they are contributing members of society, of their families, and they have definitely made a difference, not only in their own lives, but in my life too, because I've had the opportunity to meet these people and see the successes that they've had.
That's great. Thank you, Chad. One thing that actually popped in my mind too, as you were talking, and hopefully it's okay that I share this, but something to keep in mind as well for any of the employers on, I had the pleasure of being a resource at the job fair last week at Job Service. It was the Fair Chance hiring job fair, I believe, and they had well over 300 people in attendance at that. And so there's people out there that fall within this group of individuals that are looking for work, looking for stable work and income. And so just keeping that in mind as well. There's a lot of people out there. And when we look at the workforce shortages that all of our companies are facing right now. I think that is just something to kind of keep in mind, I guess, if you will. So, all right. Well, we are just about at 1 o'clock, so I am going to end our presentation. But if there is any questions, I'm going to have a follow-up email that will go out to everybody after we are all done here. There's going to be a recording, link to resources, and also contact information for all of our presenters today. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you again for attending.
Thank you, everyone.